What's up guys and welcome back to the channel. So today I want to revisit the video that Penuel the Black Pen made where he was describing or just giving his reasons for why he's not a Christian and why he can't be a Christian. And I want to pick up where the last video actually left off, where he was speaking about his objection with regards to the character of God, calling the Christian God basically immoral. And so one of the examples he used, and I referred to this example in the previous video, was the example of Job. And Penuel calls the book of Job divine gambling. And I want to start this video by saying he's not wrong to feel disturbed by the book of Job. If you are a Christian and you read the book of Job, or any human being, and you are not disturbed, then there might be something a little bit wrong with you. So with that being said, let's dive into Penuel's video and see what he has to say for himself.
To a point where he's even got a wager, gambling with Satan over a man's life, Job. A successful man, a God-fearing man, a man who was rooted in his faith, who'd become wealthy materially. And Satan was like, I bet I can change that guy. God was like, how much you got, my friend? How much you got? A wage over a man's life, suffering. And this is meant to be an inspiring story of Job's faith was so strong that no matter what Satan threw at him, the loss of his wealth, the loss of his family, his being ill, he remained. I'm like, what type of God would this be? What type of father would do that, to say, do whatever you can to my child?
So I'm going to stop it there. There's a lot that can be said about this particular clip. Like I said, if you read the book of Job and you are not disturbed by the events that occur in Job's life, the suffering that befalls him, then you are just not human. But Penuel makes a mistake. He says this book is supposed to be an inspiring story about a guy whose faith was so strong that he could overcome all these different odds, different things thrown at him. And this is actually a key kind of insight into the mistake that Penuel is making here. And it's a mistake that I see a lot of Christians make as well, which is that we kind of misdefine the book of Job, the genre, the purpose of the book of Job. Now, obviously, like I said, if you see someone losing everything they had, that can stir some resentment in you. It should. I remember when the Western Cape flood hit. I live in the Western Cape. I found those same kind of feelings bubbling up inside myself towards God, where you are struggling to do the best that you can as a human being to provide for your family, to make sure your family has sustained prosperity. And then something like that happened, the Western Cape flood, something that God is obviously in control of. And I remember feeling a sense of resentment towards God. But what we need to remember about the book of Job, firstly, is, guys, the purpose of the book is not as Penuel stated it. It's not to inspire us to look at the guy who has that kind of faith and to try and emulate that kind of faith. Remember the first 2 chapters of the book of Job, the opening scene, let's say the opening scene of the book of Job, that scene is not known by Job. This is a literary device that is aimed at the reader. We are getting a glimpse of something that happened that Job will never know about. And this is important, guys, because from Job's perspective, he is a righteous man. The Bible even confirms that he is a righteous man. God even confirms he is a righteous man. He does all the right things. He lives in right standing with God. And yet all this suffering befalls him. And how do you deal with that kind of suffering? Because this is the question of the book of Job. How do you stay faithful in the midst of unjust suffering? That's the point of the book. Because you and I can agree, when you suffer because of things that you've done, sins that you've committed, bad decisions that you've made, or even your family has made that affects you, you can understand, okay, I'm suffering because of this and this and this. But what if you do everything humanly possible from your side to do the right thing, and yet you still suffer tremendously? Will you still stay faithful to God? That is the point of the book of Job. But Penuel makes the mistake that Job's friends make. They try to give humanly reasons for his suffering. Maybe he sinned. Maybe his children sinned. These kinds of mindsets. Or maybe God is unjust, like Job's wife comes and says, no, but why not rebel against God? Meaning questioning God's justice. But God answers Job not by giving him specific reasons for the suffering, but he answers Job with his own transcendence. Look at what the Bible says. It says in Job 38 verse 4, "Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding." So oftentimes when we are suffering, we want God to give us the exact reasons why, almost like we want to approve the reasons for our suffering. But often God answers us with his transcendence. He is sovereign. He knows the ripple effect of every decision he makes. He knows that there is ultimate good to be had in the suffering that we experience now. We don't know that. We don't have an eternal perspective. And this brings us to the audacity that we as human beings often have by trying to put God's morality on trial. We want to adjudicate God's actions as if we are in a position to see the outcome of those actions. But we are not. God knows, God has the knowledge and the power to accomplish his will perfectly. So he knows that the suffering that he allows or ordains in this season of life will have a great payout in another season of life. It might not even be in your lifetime. It might be 1,000 years from now. Look at the story of Joseph. Joseph went through all of that suffering. He was in the pit. He was in Potiphar's house in jail. And he went through all of that, not because of anything that he did wrong, not even primarily for his own sanctification. He went through all of that so that he could be of salvation to his people. But we live in such an individualistic, selfish culture that we want everything that happens to us to be either of benefit to us or at least to have direct reference to or pertinence to our lives. But God has a grander plan. He has a greater plan, and we need to submit to that plan. Now, I want to stop this video by saying suffering is real. I'm not minimizing suffering. I don't believe that when someone is going through suffering, when, for example, a mother loses a child, the child has died, I don't think the right thing is to go to that mother and say, oh, God has a plan for your life. To just kind of skim over their pain with Bible verses. No. But we need to be there for each other. We need to comfort one another. But we still need to have a larger perspective into the right of God as the creator, but also into the character of God as the perfect moral being on which all moral standards are built. And so we need to remind ourselves that even though we don't understand what's happening now or why it's happening, we can trust God because he knows. He is powerful enough to work this for our good. He is morally perfect so that even when he allows or permits or ordains things in our lives in the world that are truly evil, we know we can trust his purposes even when we can't see the reasons behind them.